There are a lot of ways that you can lose your asylum case. The sad truth is that many asylum officers and immigration judges are just looking for an excuse to deny you. And frankly, well, they've got a lot of tools at their disposal to do just that. The asylum rules are complex, and the system is not designed to be inviting. It actually defaults to keeping people out rather than letting them in. In short, there are a lot of pitfalls, a lot of ways for your case to be denied. And in this video, we're covering the three main types, or the three main categories of asylum denials, the three principal types of rejections. Knowing how this works can help you to avoid problems that plague so many asylum seekers, leading to denial and ultimately, in many cases, deportation. Stick with me to the end of this video because the third type of rejection is the one over which you probably actually have the most control. You need to really understand how this one works. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, well, I help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Let me know in the comments if you've got an asylum case pending, or maybe you're considering applying. And listen, I'd especially like to hear from you. If you've been waiting for an asylum interview with USCIS for multiple years. All right, asylum denials fall into three main categories. Failure to meet the core asylum requirements, being subject to one of the formal bars to asylum, and being found not credible. We're going to address each of them now. First up, failure to show that you meet the main asylum eligibility requirements. Listen, I'm not gonna lie, asylum law is really complex. There are a lot of boxes that you have to check to qualify under the law, but in the end, we can boil it down to three principal things, three main things you've got to show in order to win asylum. So the three primary components of any asylum claim include past persecution, future persecution, and a concept known as nexus, which refers to the link between the persecution and one of the 5 protected grounds outlined in U.S. asylum law. Most unsuccessful asylum cases fail because the officer or judge thinks that the person is coming up short in one of these three areas: past persecution, future persecution, or nexus. Let's briefly unpack each of them. So regarding past persecution, the key issue is convincing the judge or officer that the harm that you've already experienced qualifies as severe enough to be considered persecution under U.S. asylum law definitions. Now listen, you don't have to establish that you've been persecuted in the past in order to win asylum. You can actually win without any past harm or even any past threats against you. But the law is tilted in favor of people who do establish that they've been harmed in the past in a way that's sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution. For future persecution, the goal is to persuade the judge or asylum officer that the evidence indeed indicates a serious risk of significant harm moving forward. What is there that shows that indeed someone is in fact likely to harm you if you return to your country? Like, what can you point to that a reasonable person would look at and conclude, well, yeah, I would definitely be really scared to go back there if I were in your shoes. Now, lastly, it's essential to demonstrate that the persecutors are motivated to harm you because you possess one of the 5 protected grounds, or at least they believe that you do. Now, this is the nexus requirement that we mentioned earlier. These 5 so-called protected characteristics are your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, and something called membership in a particular social group. You've got to show that it's one of those 5 things that's behind the persecution, that the bad guys are motivated, at least in significant part, to target you because of one of these 5 protected grounds. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share here on this channel. Okay, the second main category of asylum rejections concerns bars to asylum eligibility. Now, these are things that will keep you from getting asylum, even if you show that you meet all of the general requirements for winning asylum. So what are they? Well, you're barred from asylum in the United States if you have yourself persecuted someone else on account of one of the 5 protected characteristics, had a previous asylum application denied by an immigration judge or the Board of Immigration Appeals, can be removed to a safe third country with which the United States has an agreement on deportations, have been convicted of a particularly serious crime such that you are a danger to the United States, have committed a so-called serious non-political crime outside of the United States, or you pose a danger to the security of the United States. Listen, if the US government thinks that you've ever been involved in anything even remotely associated with terrorism, then you'll be barred from asylum. Now, there are two other bars to asylum that do come up all the time. These keep lots of people from winning asylum. They're called the 1-year filing deadline and firm resettlement. The 1-year filing deadline is a rule that says that you must file your asylum application within 1 year of your most recent arrival to the United States. So if you apply after that milestone, then you can't get asylum unless you demonstrate that you qualify for an exception to the rule. Listen, if you're seeking asylum but you did not apply during your first year here, you definitely need to talk with an asylum lawyer about how best to argue that you qualify for an exception. Now, what's the firm resettlement bar? Well, this rule says that you can't get asylum if, after leaving your country and before arriving in the United States, you were physically present in another country, and while you were in that third country, you had permanent residency there or an offer to get it. The idea here is that you could have just stayed and been safe there in that other place, so why should the United States give you refuge now? This prohibition on asylum affects a lot of people. There are exceptions to this rule. All right, with that, we're ready for the third major type of asylum denial. This one is about credibility, and this is the go-to reason for denying deserving applicants who appear to meet all the asylum requirements. It's used as an excuse to deny many deserving applicants. You see, judges and asylum officers have broad discretion to find someone not credible, such that even people who are, in fact, telling the truth can get tripped up. For example, if your written materials, like your written declaration, say that something happened on X date, and then you say later in your testimony that, well, it happened on Y date, then this is considered an inconsistency, and it can contribute to a finding that you are not credible, even if the inconsistency concerns something that is trivial or not central to your claim. And I've got to tell you, in the context of a stressful asylum interview or court hearing where you're talking about traumatic things that might have happened many years ago, well, it's easy to make mistakes. People get flustered and say things that don't line up perfectly with something that they've said or written previously. But it's not just inconsistencies that can lead to a negative credibility finding and thus an asylum denial. Things like an inability to provide the level of detail desired by the officer or judge in your testimony can hurt you, as can a demeanor on your part that is viewed as suspect. But here's the good news about credibility. You really can minimize your chances for problems in this area by carefully crafting all of your written materials and then preparing adequately for your asylum interview or hearing. This is an area where an experienced asylum lawyer can make a massive difference in your chances for winning your case. If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, then call my office today. That number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to support you in your asylum journey.